Okay, I
I'm
just pressed
here.
the forward button again. I guess you're back. So yeah, it has such, your eyes have such energy where, uh, I
Like,
mean, you take a computer camera and flash it, you give red eye. If you look in a deer at night or an animal at night, it will show that vortex. It will show that power of light that's coming out of there.
yes, and the point is that as far as evolution is concerned, there is no spiritual development. There's only physical development. So, I mean, that's not in itself a total negating of what evolution and the theory of evolution proposes, but it is one major defect of evolution that doesn't take into account any of the spiritual, uh, or how the spiritual, the physical, the mental interrelate with one another. Over.
Right.
So, I mean, I think I think there's more evidence against evolution than just that. The idea that creatures could change so drastically, even in a million years, to me is preposterous. Um, I mean, it
I
just
think
seems like it's too big a step to
I
say
think
that all of a sudden some being had fins, was swimming, and now it's walking around, and now it's a human being. Just
right.
because just because organisms have similarities between them doesn't mean they evolved. I mean, um, there's no there's distinct species that cannot even communicate with one another, let alone possibly work together, even, except in a very limited sense. There's no connection. There's no spiritual uh, aspect that they share. Even if you take an ant and you take yourself, I mean, heck, there's not much. You're not going to be communicating with them, and it's impossible to imagine that somehow an ant evolved into a human being. Over. Sorry.
Right. I mean, right now, I think we can look at the magnificentness of like the smaller animals, like the insects, the dragonfly, the fly, the spider, and
Yeah.
how it builds in. Like maybe a long time ago when they're dinosaurs, we can figure out, oh, the magnificence of the large animals. But right now, we're dealing with the small animals like the butterfly and how perfect they are. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
they're like, you can't build one, you can't build something of another. They're just created. And the Oahspe itself states that it's not a hard thing to do. It's not a hard thing for Jehovah to do, to create replicas and to create these dinosaurs or whatever. I remember one part of the Oahspe, it states that actually dinosaurs go from one planet to another. Are you familiar with that?
You'll have to say that to me again, and then I find it's a very new thought to me when you say go to one planet to the other.
Well,
What are you
they're,
saying?
they're able to, I don't, with the genetics and stuff, they're able to, it's not a hard process. It's not a hard process for the all person Jehovah to do is put, is
Well, you're talking about
replicate the dinosaurs or bring one dinosaur gene to another. But the whole thing with this cosmogony and this universe of universes, I mean, we're dealing now with, it used to be 150 billion universes, and then they called the multi-universe. Now there's an infinite of an infinite universes. So there's, to me, from my understanding, there's infinite creations, infinite corporal beings,
Mhm.
infinite life. I
Makes
don't,
sense.
I don't think anything else besides infinite. I mean, they keep on they keep on going like, oh, there's 1 billion, there's 50 billion. Why don't they
Mhm.
just, why don't scientists just say first of all they're clueless on stuff as like evolution, stuff as like, I mean, why do scientists have to say um that that even the carbon dating of
Uh,
C14, why can't they just admit their mistakes? You know, you
well, I think they do in time. I mean, at one time, the Earth was the center of our solar system or the universe. And although there was resistance to it over, for quite a while, I mean, over the centuries, but eventually everyone accepts that fact now. So I think in time they do, but they should also, I think, and a lot of scientists would agree with the point that they get it wrong for a long time before they get it right.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, look, I just
But the thing is, we tend to forget that means that it doesn't mean that we should feel uncomfortable with not knowing the full truth. It just means be ready and to be open to new information, new truths about how the universe operates.
right.
Over.
It's like the olden days. You know, in the olden days, they used to have kings, and whatever the king said was the word of the land. Like to change what the king said would be like, oh no, you know, you can't do that. That's untouchable. And so these scientists are playing the role of a king, where it's like, whatever we say, we can't go backtrack. If carbon dating says 27,000 years ago for just like a snail shell, let's keep carbon dating in there. We don't want to just the intelligence of the first original people who brought upon Darwinism is it's not very intelligent. Darwin he wasn't an intelligent guy. He wasn't. I don't even think he was trying to prove creation.
I've never heard anybody say that before, but I'm not disagreeing with you. I haven't really done a close study. I mean, he did come to a wrong conclusion based on it's like generalizations.
Yeah, Darwin is one big generalization. Yeah, it is.
The thing is, when you infer something, when you look at similar traits between animals, for example, which was he was you're not proving something, you're not deducing anything, you're making an inference, and inferences have only a possibility of being right, but they overgeneralize. Yeah, I agree. So he's a smart man, but maybe he's not as wise in the final conclusions as he should have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how many times can Darwin what are those lizards called that he threw out in the ocean, come back? Oh, there's my theory based upon of the lizards coming back to me. I mean, it's kind of dumb. Scientists to me these days are followers. They're pagan followers.
Well, there's a lot of science nowadays is generated by research grants, basically. I mean, for example, global warming. I don't accept global warming except as a natural process, just as Oahspe describes. There's different cycles for different things. I'm not saying there isn't pollution. There is lots of pollution, and we should be fighting pollution, but the global warming thing is based on, the scientists now is based on, we accept it as true, and because we're going to get money if we say it's true, and we're going to be cut off from money if we say it isn't. It's a political reality.
Are you familiar with the verse in Oahspe that says, "We shall bring ruin to the man who is ruining the earth"? I don't know.
I'm not.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember that verse. But maybe you paraphrased it in a way I don't recall, but it sounds true.
I mean, how do scientists explain this? It talks about in the Oahspe. It talks about Simu, like actual. There's the Simu age, and then there's actual Simu. Now the Oahspe says there's no seed in the Simu, and that spread. You've seen Simu, and how there's no seed, and that there's an incredible amount of life. That is called life, Simu. There's no seed. There's no seed
probably,
at all. So
I use the word
explain that. It's
I agree. It's something unique and original that we haven't seen. Like I say, it only happens every a 500,000 years, every 10 million years. It doesn't happen that often, so we've never no one's directly observed it. So it's simply a new state. It's a new biological phenomenon that has no counterpart right now in our world. So, and I think it's fair to say that it is not a seed, but it can have the outcome of the seeds or the outcome of a pregnancy, since creatures are being created basically out of that material, over cosmic material.
Here it is. It's the first age. I mean, okay, there's four, right? Simu, first age, new garden, and this happens on the infinite life that's out there of infinite planets. It's called the spring age. So spring, summer, fall, and then winter. It's follows Hotu age. The Hotu age is a summer age, and this is metaphysical. It talks about the garden. I mean, this is obviously metaphysical. Planting season over. Hotu.
Jim Denon did a lot of re-explaining of this, and it was really valuable, I think, for a lot of us to have him simplify it for us. I mean, you can read it and get the same thing, but he, through diagrams and just using simpler language, made it more approachable.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Hotu? Hotu there is only extinction. Are you familiar with this?
It only in a personal sense. It relates to my life quite closely, I would say. No, I don't know. I mean, obviously a lot of species are dying out now. I'm not sure what to say about it, except that it's a given that yes, species die out. It could be due to viruses such as C19 or meteor showers. I don't really know, but obviously there's plenty of species that lived millions of years ago that are not here now. So it's very easy to believe there is such a season as extinction here called Hotu. Over.
Okay, so it goes on to say, every species has allocated time during.
I'd like to point out that even though I've read this before and it's never really taken hold, it's interesting. I grant it's interesting. I just know that our world is in such a state right now that we need to get to the heart of healing and creating communities of the new age where people work together well, live together well, in peace and harmony. I think perhaps the cosmogony information is indirectly useful in that it is showing us that we only have a limited time on Earth to do something. So, I mean, we all know, and it's just a reminder that your life will end at some point. It begins and it ends, and it begins, develops, and ends. And we have to find a way to make our time count in this world while we're still here. Something that's easier said than done. Over.
Yeah. All men are in embryonic state, waiting to be born, and that birth is called death after death. So
well put reference. Thank you. Yeah, actually, as far as the carbon dating goes, I went and did some research on that, and it isn't quite as extreme as it's true there is some miscalculation with the carbon dating, but it's not extreme. It's like 5%, 1%. It's not like you used to think this was 100,000 years ago when really it was only 10,000 years ago. It's not like that. It's more like it was 100,000 years ago. Well, it was really 90,000 years ago or 95,000 years ago. So the carbon dating isn't a bunch of crock. It's just that they've had to, they found that they didn't have the formula quite down. That's how to make the
I
final.
believe it's a clock. We can talk about that in another. I believe
Okay.
it's a clock. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I just think it. I mean, we could talk about that some other time. I just think it's ridiculous.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm just bringing that up.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is the garden. Like, I mean, this is metaphysical. This is metaphysical on the Ezra Bible. This is metaphysical in the Constantine Bible. This is metaphysical in Genesis. In Genesis, the Torah. The garden. I mean, if I were to say garden to you, this right here. Not called the garden in Oahspe, but in Ashong. What does that mean to you? Like you know, the harvest, right? Harvest is a harvest of the soul.
Mm.
Would you agree?
Say that one more time.
So the garden, and I know we're in disagreement with the law of one, but I think you would agree with me that the garden and the harvest is the harvest of man, like they're the essence of who they are. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, when I read stuff like this, I don't say to myself, okay, I got to remember this. Let's see. It's going to be 144,000 years. Got it. And then 4 times that is 576,000 years. Yeah. I'm not telling myself, got to remember these numbers. I just want to know the general concept, which is there are cosmic cycles, cosmic ages, where even bigger processes take place. I mean, we have hard enough trouble discussing the phases in one person's life, even looking at our own life and seeing how we've changed. So the idea that we're looking at the phases of galaxies and whatever's bigger than a galaxy, it's a pretty large concept to grasp. And it's probably easier to grasp once you're on the other side and you can study the heavens and outer space more closely since you're immortal. But for us, it's just sort of like some far off class. Kids aren't taking, calculus when they're in kindergarten. You might tell them there is such a class and they might sort of understand that it's really hard math, but it's the same thing for this. I think is that you can't say to yourself that I'm going to study everything in cosmogony and that's going to save me, that's going to resurrect me. It's information to be considered. It can be valuable as an analogy of how time and lives go through different phases. But I guess in the end, what I'm trying to say is probably not the most important words in Oahspe, in my opinion. But I'm not saying it's of no value, but I'm just saying no one should spend a lot of time trying to worry about the terminology and how it compares with other sources of knowledge throughout the world. Over. Sorry, that was too long. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? Or
yeah, I mean, there's some really good people in a lot of religions, and we're here. Jehovah's here to separate people, and that's my end. Well, come on, Bob. What do you have to say?
No, I'm just laughing. Jehovah's here to separate people. You just say that again.
No. To separate the sheep from, I mean,
Well, I think what you should say, I think what you mean to say is, according to other religions, Jehovah's here is, there's a creator, there's a supreme being that separates us. I don't mean to laugh at you. I'm just laughing because I recognize the words as a Christian doctrine. I'm not laughing at you. I'm sorry if you think so. I apologize. I'm laughing at the Christian use of those words. Does that make sense?
yeah.
It's only that you brought it up that I laughed, because it's part of my Christian indoctrination. I was raised a Catholic. So it reminded me of being told that in my catechism classes, that God's here to separate the wheat from the chaff, the sheep from the goats. And
So, I can't exactly.
So I'm only laughing because it goes, if you say Jehovah, and what I know about the process of resurrection via Oahspe, that goes totally against about the concept of not completely, but literally it goes against the idea that the Creator is here to separate us. Say, well, you're going to hell, you're going to heaven.
No, that's ridiculous. That's like Christendom. That's like olden days Christendom. I mean, that's, first of all, the hell thing is kind of like you're screwed up in the head, because the hell thing is, how could you imagine? How could you imagine, like, you have that concept in your mind, but why would people imagine other people are in hell unless they didn't have a problem with their own? I think if people imagine other people are in hell, they got a problem with themselves. How could you? That's not who the all person is. That's not who Jehovah is. I'm trying to find this verse. I can't find it. It said, I'll just summarize what it says. So the best of the Mohammedans, the best of the Hindus, the best of the Confucius, the best of the Christians, that's when they turned over. Not really turned over, but I mean, this whole world is one big, on everybody. It's one big delusion. This is not really. This is the world of you being in an embryonic state. That's
good point, Matthew. Thank you. Yeah, good points.
So
it's. I mean, this life means something, but in a sense, it's not the real life. And in that, we don't have we have control of ourselves, but not complete. I think in the next, we might have been born, for example, people can be born into poverty. They can be born into a spiritual state where there's a lot of bad spirits around them because of how their family is. And so they might be born into a cult, a Christian cult, telling them things which are not even true. So that's why, in a way, this world is not the real life, because we don't really have full control of how our life does. We do to a degree, and we can get more control of it. But for most people, there's a lot of extra factors which interfere with their free will over.
Yeah, I'm not really, like, the Oahspe is just one of many. There's an infinite amount of, and I don't think people, even faithists, grasp this. There's an infinite amount of heavens. There's an infinite amount of corporal life. There's an infinite amount of spiritual life. I mean, if you look at like there's dinosaurs of every shape and size. I mean, every shape and size. There's different types of humans. I mean, we're dealing with 4 right now. The Indians, the Chinese, the Asians, and Ham, Japheth, Shem, Ham, Japheth. What's the other one?
I think there's only 3.
What? Yeah, okay. So
Next stage. I mean, anyway, it's not important.
So and then the 4 religions. for religions, we're trying to harvest the best of the people on earth. It doesn't matter what religion they're from.
Yeah, I think Aranathan makes some really great points. I don't have any quotations with me, but basically they say, heck, if you're Buddhist or if you're Islamic, you know, walk the walk, talk the talk. If you're a good person, you're a good person. And if you're praying directly to the Creator, no matter what you call the Creator, you, you're doing good. So those of us who have read Oahspe can often be world philosophers in a sense, but who aren't really working for the good of the world. We just have become part of an Oahspe cult, for example. We're not really doing anything to advance the world. We're simply stuck in rehashing, the 121 signs, symbols of various plates, maybe Samoan, for example, over.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it means we can work with other religions to a degree, I think, or anyway, we should try to have a positive attitude towards everyone, even though I'm right now cutting up religious people, I guess,
Yes.
and even Oahspe, but
I mean, everybody has a chance to be ripe. Every ripe. You know what? You don't say evil. You don't say evil. You say unripe. You don't, and then you say ripe for being the opposite of evil.
yeah, that's a higher attitude, isn't it? I think
So
it's so hard to
the
keep that.
garden,
I find myself categorizing people as evil every day because they did something horrific. But if we can look 100 years from now or whatever, we'll probably find that this person finally got straightened out and is now doing wonderful things for people from the other side. Over.
yeah, right. I'm gonna make this one right here the next podcast.
Okay.